Black Americans have been fencing in New Orleans since the 1840s, but it was nearly a century later in 1939 when things began to change in Dr. Frank's native New York.
Getting Temple University competitive with the rest of the collegiate landscape in terms of NIL is going to be huge, and even more important in terms of recruiting over the next decade. The work they put in over this year to get themselves up to speed in name, image, and likeness is going to be his biggest challenge.
Hello everyone, I'm Dunne from Owl Sports Update. We are at the Woodman Community Center in Kinston, North Carolina right now. We are just 30 minutes from Greenville, North Carolina, where Temple and ECU will take on tonight. This also happens to be Damian Dunne's hometown. Stay tuned for a feature story on him and our coverage of ECU Temple here on @Owl Sports Update.
I don't think we've seen the best of this Owls team yet. They've turned in some great performances on each end of the floor, but if they find a full 40 minutes, it's going to be impressive.
There's been a collection of fans taking pictures and video here at the Liacouras Center of a graphic saying, "Thank you, Coach," above me, and even a t-shirt left behind that says "Winning is an Attitude," with a thank you message for Coach Chaney. Now officially from the university, Fran Dunphy spoke late Friday afternoon, and Aaron McKee addressed the media on Saturday morning.
I had mentioned last week my key to the game for Memphis was getting pressure on Juwan Mathis. It's something they've done as a program for quite a few years now, be at the top of the American Athletic Conference and getting pressure on quarterbacks. They didn't do that, and that's a credit to what this offensive line can do. Around this time last year, Temple football was anticipating a big day on draft day. It came to fruition as a program record of 4 Owls heard their name called last spring. While that level of success might not be duplicated this season, another parliament of Owls got to prove its worth to scouts at Tuesday's Pro Day. And narrowing in on a program for a second here, obviously this is a football program. We want to talk about that football program. 4-12 over the last 2 seasons. When do you start to evaluate the program, and what changes need to be made to get them back on the right track?
What type of barriers existed for you as a black woman in New York to get into fencing in the 1960s? Barely 2 months into her time in Philadelphia, Vinitha Mumadi is dominating on the tennis court. The freshman from India spent her fall semester virtual, halfway around the world. But once stepping onto campus this spring, Mumadi has wasted no time taking over, with an unbeaten start to her season as the top singles player for Temple.
The first semester was pretty hectic, to be frank, The time gap from my country to here is around 10 hours, so I had to do night classes, keep in touch with the coach.
Mumadi was able to keep up with her training in part because of her father. He is a tennis lifer who now owns an academy where Mumadi trained throughout the pandemic.
And I remember him playing a showcase tournament. I was so impressed, and he got all the appreciation from the crowd, and also I was like, I'm going to do that too.
For the first time, Mumadi is away from her family and halfway across the globe on Temple's campus. Off the court, it's been a bit of an adjustment. On the court, however, Mumadi's been dominating opponents.
Once she's here, she actually, get the real feel of it, and she seems adjusting pretty good.
For coach and player alike, the expectation is that this early career success is just a small glimpse at what lies ahead for Mumadi.
I still want to go pro after I finish my college, so I was hoping to play a lot of tennis and play against good schools, which we are playing.
Damian Dunne has become Temple's closer this year, a role that has a lot to do with his opening act in Kinston, North Carolina.
With 2, Dunne, sidestep 3 for the win! It's good! Damian Dunne does it again! A game-winning 3 for Damian Dunne!
Damian's hometown of Kinston has amassed fame as a breeding ground for hoops talent. 1 in every 53 players that have played for Kinston High School have gone on to the NBA, the highest per capita in the world.
The beauty of Kinston, North Carolina is that the kids here in Kinston, they grow up wanting to be a Viking. They grow up wanting to wear that K on their chest and win a state championship ring and be eventually in a Hall of Fame.
they have a tradition and a blueprint to follow, because we have had so many basketball stars that has came from Kinston that went on to college and went on to the NBA or went overseas and played basketball. So these kids know that, hey, Brandon Ingram, Jerry Stackhouse, these guys went to Rochelle Middle School. These guys went to Kinston High School. If they can make it, I can make it. So it gives them a blueprint to follow, and it gives them all hope.
People say, well, how does this keep happening? And that's a big piece. I mean, any kid that lives in any little area and in this community can find a rec center that they can go play basketball. And some kids are the happiest just getting in the gym and playing basketball. And so to have that ability goes a long way.
I provided an opportunity for those kids to get off the street, and not just during business hours, after hours. I used to get on those kids about calling their parents, and the parents gave them permission. As long as Mr. Ingram is still there, I don't mind you still remaining in the gym. That took away from those kids getting out on the street and getting in trouble.
Beyond the town, Damien had 3 at-home trainers in his dad and 2 older brothers.
He had 3 sons, and he was telling me how good they was gonna be. But he always bragged on the youngest son that he was gonna be better than all of them.
Damien always ended up crying because he couldn't hit a shot. His brothers was blocking his shot, and growing up in a basketball town, basketball family, you don't want to give him anything, make him earn it. And then until that one day came where he finally scored on his brothers, and that just kind of took it to a whole nother level.
Taking him home, I remember seeing the goal in the driveway, and you just know that those were just battles back in the day.
Yeah, man, I tell you, I've got 7 state championship rings in my house between my 3 guys.
A big piece of Damien Dunne's development came here at the Woodman Community Center, where he and his brothers played and his father later worked.
I did work there, and Dame spent a lot of time in there. But I think it really, everything started at Rochelle Middle School.
He looked like a man amongst boys in middle school. He was an athlete, he was a freak.
His name and his game translated to high school, where Damien was the star of Kinston High School for 3 years. While he transferred to a high school in Georgia for his senior year, he and his game will always reflect Kinston.
We have a saying around here that we go by, Kinston tough. If you can play Kinston basketball, if you can play in Kinston, then you can play anywhere in the world.
And then if you had to boil Damien Dunne, his game down to a word, what would that word be?
Smooth.
Discipline.
Mamba mentality, man. I know you said a word, but Mamba.
There's a lot to describe Damien, but I would have to say Damien humble. He's a very humble kid.